Matthew.
Sure. Also on this new announcement of sexual abuse allegations in the Central African Republic. One is, I noticed in this one you said that you mentioned UNICEF's helping, and there was no mention of, quote, legal assistance. And if, on Monday, you were saying, I had asked you what this legal assistance would consist of. Does this mean that UNICEF's offering of help now doesn't include legal assistance, or did before? And I also wanted to ask Mr. Ladsous, the head of DPKO, where is he now? Apparently he was on leave during the first iteration of these scandals. Can he speak to us, given that he's in charge of DPKO?
Your first question was
UNICEF.
on UNICEF.
Yep.
Again, I mean, I can read it to you again, but they're offering, yes, there's no mention of of legal assistance. And you can clarify that with them if you want. Mr. Ladsous is right here at headquarters.
And will he speak and answer questions about?
We'll see. I mean, again, I want to stress this. We're trying, yesterday I said, as we have information, we will deliver it from this podium, and that's exactly what I'm doing today. So I think, we are providing you with as much information, as much detail as we can here.
The reason I ask is the DRC thing that you mentioned. It was not only reported in the Toronto Globe and Mail, but I remember in 2011 there was back and forth in this room about the allegations. Nobody said that the thing didn't happen. So what is the record keeping? Did these cases just disappear after they're discussed in the briefing room and reported publicly?
No, the cases don't disappear. The record are kept by the Conduct and Discipline Unit, and we do our best when you ask a question to go back and find out if we can confirm or infirm. And in this case, we could not find this case specifically that you mentioned. First, we looked at 2012 because this is what you mentioned in briefing. Then in your email, 2011, if I understood correctly. Mm-hmm. So they went back to that, and we just.
So they never wrote it down because it was publicly alleged. They clearly looked into it. So how did it not give rise to a case file?
Based on what you gave us right now, we can't find a case that matches. Joe, please. Matthew.
Sure. A couple of world, I guess, humanitarian questions. One has to do with the Yarmouk camp in Damascus. It was announced yesterday by UNRWA that they got the first access there since June 8th or 9th and found typhoid in the camp. And they, in their announcement, they call it besieged. But OCHA has said that it's not besieged. So I wanted to know, is this a change? Has the UN decided now that by OCHA, because there's some legal distinction about besieged and not besieged. Mr. O'Brien said it's not besieged. UNRWA says, that runs the camp, says it is besieged. Is it besieged or not? And what's going to be done on the typhoid, which now they say is doubled to 11 cases?
On the typhoid, I don't know, and I've seen the UNRWA information, but I don't know, so I'll check on that. On besieged, not besieged, look, given I understand your point about that it could mean different things, but the most important thing here is that Yarmouk is in a desperate condition, and that we are trying to do our best, whether it's the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and USG O'Brien, or through UNRWA, to get assistance there as much as we can and help the people that are in Yarmouk.
I guess I'm just saying because the
I know what
Secretary
you're
General
saying,
writes
but
reports to the
I'm not
Security
going to
Council
say anything else
distinguishing
than
besieged
this.
and not besieged.
Anybody else has a question?
Can I ask about
Joe, let's do one you and then one someone else.
Ask about the AT&T and the surveillance, but there was a follow-up humanitarian question I wanted to ask, which was about the aid worker that was raped in the Bentiu camp in South Sudan. And much was said from this podium of what the UN system, including the agency, which turned out to be UNICEF, was doing. And the alleged victim herself has asked, has tweeted at your office and Inner City Press asking what has happened since. And since it's Humanitarian Day, it seems like the right time to ask, are you aware of any steps taken since this was reported in BuzzFeed to get to the bottom of the rape of this aid worker working in the Bentiu camp of the UN?
I'm not aware, but it might just be me, so don't. It might just be because I was working on something else. So
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. AT&T, should I do it now or can I do it later?
Are you going to ask? Are you going to
I'm
stop
asking
asking questions if I give you it
There's
now?
a good answer to this one, I promise.
Go.
All right. The question is, on the AT&T, you'd said the UN didn't know and now was going to speak with them. And so, okay, the thing is that in looking into it, there is a UN rule. This is a UN, it's called the General Conditions of Contract, and it says that all UN contractors can disclose information provided that the contractor give the UN sufficient prior notice of the request of the disclosure information to allow the UN to have an opportunity for a protective measure. This implies that for a UN contractor, AT&T, to allow the US to take any information, they would have had to disclose to the UN. So I wanted to know, and you may not know at the podium, but given that this is a UN rule for all contractors, and given that, you said that the UN didn't know, but by the rules, either the UN had to know or AT&T violated the rules, because that's what the rule is. So I wanted to know, can you find out, either from procurement or OLA, whether the UN was notified of AT&T providing all of this electronic communication to the United States?
So on AT&T and this issue, just to tell you that we are in touch with AT&T, and we have made our concerns known to them, and we'll be continuing this discussion with them over the coming months. And also, we will put to bid a number of IT and voice contract also in the coming months. And I just want again reiterate that we expect all member states to respect the inviolability of our communication.
Do you assume that do you assume that information is continuing to be shared with the United States today, going forward, during the GA week? Is that the UN's
As I said
understanding?
from here, both yesterday and the day before, we got assurances from the U.S. government that they were not and would not monitor our communication, and that's it. Yes.
That was inconsistent with what was later disclosed.
Matthew,
You got the assurance.
Matthew, it's not just your briefing.
Right.
Okay,
No, but I'm asking you, it's a
let's just give questions to other people, please. Other people, not just you. Yes, Ali.
Sure. I wanted to ask you on this issue of interns in the UN system being unpaid, therefore that only the most affluent can work. There's a letter. It's a public, but it's also said that it was sent to Ban Ki-moon. Have you gotten a letter, and are you going to meet with these groups, QFRI, and pay your interns?
We printed out this the Washington Post thing for him this morning, so I think he has seen it. Evelyn, you.
Sure. In Burundi, one of the media that was closed by the government, RPA, Radio Publique Africaine, has published its investigation of who killed the general that the Secretary General, denounced the assassination of. And their investigation, which is pretty detailed, seems to say that the tracks lead back to the government itself. So I wanted to know.
I'll just refer you back to his statement at that moment, and his alarm at the trend of politically motivated violence that we're seeing in Burundi.
But is DPA tracking? I guess this report. If true, would be a pretty big thing. It also seems to put the media at risk. So I wanted to know: is who in the UN system is sort of tracking these events?
We have a presence in Burundi, a UN presence, as you know, and of course DPA is looking at the relevant offices in DPA. Look at the political developments and all over the world, Matthew. Okay.